So, today's going to be a little bit different. So far, we have done a lot based on AD, specifically in the building stuff. We've set up our server, we've created users, we've added computers to the domain itself. Covered a lot so far, but today we're going to step into something a little bit newer. We're finally going to start touching on a first example of default vulnerabilities built into just the standard AD environment. And that vulnerability specifically relies within the local user. Yes, I got you. That better, guys? Just gonna wait and make sure audio is good before we continue with the explanation of what's going on. Better. Okay, cool, cool. So like I was saying, we so far have focused on mostly the setup process for a couple different things, specifically setting up the AD server, setting up the user accounts, adding those computers to the domain that we created. Today we're actually going to take the first look at one of the vulnerabilities that are defaulted into Windows machines whenever you build them this way. And that specifically is going to be the local account. I'm going to bump that music down just a little bit more, because it's kind of, it's on my end. There we go. Bumped it down my end so I can still actually participate in this. So, we're specifically going to be focusing on that local account. So if you guys remember through the process of joining a computer onto the domain, we have to have a local admin account created first. As I've talked about before, the first account that you create on Windows 10 is always going to be an admin account. So we've utilized that account to join to the domain using the domain admin account that we've created previously. So what happens whenever we add it to the domain? Does that local account disappear? The answer is no. That local account actually stays present, and it's a very it depends on how you set it up. A lot of people, since they're adding this computer to the domain, they're about to have all their permissions and everything handled by AD. They don't worry about as much about this local account. They'll sometimes set either a very weak password or no password whatsoever, and that can cause some issues because that account still is a local admin. It still has control to alter the system. It still has the ability to install different programs on the back end to run malware. You can't interact with the AD, but being able to still interact with the system. Sorry, got a little bit of hiccups for whatever reason, but having that account still allows you to interact with that computer. Start putting listeners on it. Start installing different malwares. That can be a huge issue. Even if your AD security is good, one computer that's sitting there constantly listening is bad. If I leave the local admin account on the IT laptop vulnerable, somebody can go in there, install a keylogger. Suddenly now they have my username and password just for my day-to-day activity. No vulnerabilities really need to be exploited other than the fact that we left a very unsecured password for a local account. And the way we're going to fix that is with something called Laps. So today's going to be an experimental episode. I've never personally installed Laps. I have used Laps in very many instances. A lot of the deployments that I've been a part of have already had it installed. Most of them have been configured. There's only been a few instances where I've had to build a network from the ground up, and at that time, Laps just wasn't something I was very much aware of. But it is a tool I highly recommend. So today we're all going to fumble through this together and try to figure it out. I've done some research on it, on the installation. Doesn't look too hard, but I haven't actually ran through the process, simply because I wanted you guys here for it. So far we've shown a lot of stuff. We've gone through it. I don't want to just set it up and say, hey, here's what it is. I want you guys to be able to build it. I want you guys to follow along with me, and odds are if I fall down some holes trying to get it, you guys will too on your own. So I'm hoping to give the chance to show those holes that we're going to fall into and catch a little bit. That way we can correct it on your end. I want you to fight the same struggle. No reason to reinvent the wheel, you know? So let's pop into our Windows 10 machine. We're actually really quickly just going to grab this to Matze Hackerman. Oh, I had caps lock on. My bad. Okay, so we're in. So real quick, we're actually just going to do and grab that IP address because I want to use the normal remote desktop. Okay, so here's what's going to get interesting. So we're using remote desktop right now. Typically, for anybody who's used 22, I'm about to be 23 actually 1 week from today. So I'm still pretty young. It's not going to. Okay, so I was worried about that. So for others of you who know, or sorry, let me restart that one. So for those of you who have ever used remote desktop on an AD environment, you still have to configure a couple things. Even on local machines when you do AD, you still have to configure it to allow that connection. The computer that I'm using here, my host system, is actually back on Windows. I'm not sharing my screen. Thank you for telling me that. it's one of those days, guys. I'm sorry. It's just one of those days. All right, so as you see, here's the environment we built before. What I was getting to a second ago is I actually got an error trying to remote in, and there's a reason I got this error. So give it just a second. We're waiting for the error. I'm gonna go ahead and start prepping for what needs to happen to fix it. Let me go here. So, yep, there's the error. So you can see it's not gonna allow us to come in. So what we're gonna do is pop over here, grab the remote desktop settings, sign in as administrator, change this setting. So you can see the account that we're signed into is actually not high enough privileges to do this. So give me just a second. I need to open the virtual machines. We're going to minimize this one to the corner. Go ahead and pop up our DC. And then actions. Thank you for whoever told me I was not streaming. Or I wasn't sharing my screen. Oh, System. Thank you, System. I appreciate that. Pop in here. If you guys remember, this is our domain controller that we built out. This is where we control permissions. We already got Active Directory users' computers up, and we've already got Matze Hackerman open. So let's go over to, where is it? Member of, what is he member of? Member of Administrator. Domain Administrator. Domain Admin. Boom. Apply. Already listed. I already had it listed. Like I said, today's going to be an experimental episode. Actually, we're not going to fight this right now. This is fixing an issue for preference sake. So let's actually get on to the real stuff we're here for, which is going to be specifically going into laps and some of the stuff we're working on there. So, go ahead and close out this. We will need the domain controller, but not this instance. So let's go ahead and pop up here. Here we go. So here's our normal computer. So if we come over to our C drive and go into our users, you can still see that John is still here. If you guys remember, John was our local admin that we originally created. John was meant to just get us onto the domain. John served his purpose, so we forgot about John, right? Well, while we forgot about John, hackers have not. They're going to be able to walk in, start messing around with this, and see that John is actually a local account. So what we're going to do is just to kind of show you guys this real quick. Sign out. We're going to see if I remember John's password. I'm pretty sure I left no password for John. But we shall find out here in just a second. Come here. Because this is a non-domain user, this is an interesting thing to know too. If you notice, we click down here to other users, and you see it's trying to sign into Allstate, which is our domain that we built. We need to sign into a local user, which is not going to be a part of our domain. So we're going to use period / which just brings us back to the computer's local users, to the computer itself. And we're going to type in John, and we're going to see if I left his password empty. I did. Looks like Yep, see, perfect example. Bad password left on an administrative account. Didn't need to be left on that administrative account. So, we come in, I want to... Oh, we installed actually all these applications as John, as we did in the last episode. So, we still have access to this. We can come in here, do whatever we want to. We can't interact with anything in the domain, which means any of the shared folders we have, any of the users that belong to the domain controller, I can't alter. So if I come over here and go to users, add or edit remove users. So if we come and take a look, it's being slow. It really is that backslash. It's one of those tricks that I have to keep around that's real nice because those local accounts. So I'll specifically explain why we still want to keep the local account. We'll remove it here in just a second. But as you can come over here and see other users, there's no other users listed. We can't interact with any of the domain users that have been added because, as we know, Matze Hackerman was just signed in a second ago, which means he should be here. If we check the user profile over here, or the user folder, we can see that Matze Hackerman is here. He's been signed to this computer. If we roll in and check regedit, he will have a registered entry. But we can't interact with it because it's still a local admin. So, why is this local admin still useful? Like I said before, local admin is still a admin of the system. He's still able to install stuff. He's still able to poke around with some of the files. Still stuff like that. But for the administrative purposes, for the administrative level too, it's also a very useful thing to have. So, as you guys remember, I talked about computers. Whenever they join a domain, you have to be connected to the network where that domain is at for the first time to be able to sign in. And once you've signed in, you actually cache those credentials and you cache that user sign in. So even if you leave the network, you can still sign into that user on that system, even though it's not connected to the domain controller. But that user, after so many days, can lose trust with the domain. So what ends up happening is now so-and-so is on vacation, they went to Timbuktu, they've locked themselves out of their account, but they're not on the network to contact the domain controller. What do? Well, assuming that the admin also has a VPN account, what we can do is start working through something like, let's see, Quick Assist. So every version of Windows 10 right now should have, as long as it's not Windows Server, Windows 10, the actual desktop installation, has an application called Quick Assist inside. Quick Assist will allow me from anywhere, once I've signed into my Microsoft Store account, to provide aid. The only person who needs to sign into that account, by the way, is just the administrator. So what it allows you to do is send this other person a code and get remote desktop access. Hey, what's up, Jacoby? So, this local admin account comes into play after you get this remote access. Because you now have an admin to get on and to start communicating with, you can actually start signing into accounts. It means you can open up the VPN application as that user, because once that user's logged out, there is no desktop to really get into other than that local user. So for that initial installation with Quick Assist, you have to be able to get into an account. That's where that local one is, comes in and becomes useful for it. So we sign in as that local user, start up Quick Assist, get a connection. The admin reestablishes the connection with the VPN. And I want to teach you guys one last trick that's nice to know. So once I'm connected to the VPN, say we're established here, I'm set up a VPN, and right now it wouldn't work anyways because I am still within the same network as the AD and within the rest of the network. So what we would do is come over here, go to our local C drive, pop into Windows, and you can see we've got all these different applications. These are some of the Windows core applications. You see right here, Explorer. That's your standard file explorer that we have opened right here. So if you guys hold down Shift and right click, you will see, where is it? Not run as administrator. Am I still local account? I'm still as John. Sorry, give me just a second. Figure that out. Run as different user. So hold Shift, right click, make sure you have the application highlighted. When you hit run as different user, you can see by default it's trying to communicate with the domain. So as you guys remember, we've jumped to the VPN. That means now technically we're on the same network as the AD again. And I need to make sure that I can change the password and that's permission sync across. Whenever you're connected to a VPN and you run as a different user, it actually sends that same request. As you guys remember, once a Windows computer gets added to a domain, it stops thinking for itself. It starts requesting every bit of permissions that it can do from the AD controller. I said AD controller. From the domain controller, sorry. So what's going to happen is, say I want to type in Matze here, and Matze's been locked out, and I give it Matze's password. So what's going to happen is whenever I send this out, it's going to request from the domain controller to check these credentials. And when it comes back and says, yes, these credentials are good, it's going to recache those credentials. As you can see in just a second. Specific advice. Probably typed in the password incorrectly, or do not have appropriate permissions to access it, because I'm on the local account. But even though it didn't open, it did still send out that request to authenticate to Matze. So in that situation, we can now sign out of the local account, and our credentials for Matze would have been recached for us to use again. So you can pop over, you can see we're signing back into AllSafe again. And we're gonna pop in. So I've shown you guys kind of the uses for it. I've shown you kind of laid out the framework for why this account being unsecured can be a bad thing, because, like we've seen, John has no password, but it's still a local admin account. It still has the permission to access things. A non-admin account should not be able to access that user's folder. What we've done now, or what we're going to do next, is actually start showing how to lock it down, what the next steps are to kind of secure this to make sure it's still a usable tool, because that account is still very much needed. Like I said earlier, that tool and that solution is going to be Lapse. We're actually going to hop over here and start doing some Googling. Like I said, this is going to be my first time actually doing the installation. I've worked with the tool before, but with Lapse install. So we're going to just real quick to kind of touch on some of this too, that I'm going to skim through this, but with Lapse, Lapse has the nice ability to assign each computer and every user that's there its own separate password. So if I join 3 different computers to this domain and they each have 3 separate local admins, that password for each local admin will actually be different. So if I pop them open, they also change every 30 days. So even if that password is stolen, it's somehow cracked, some other malicious tool or whatnot, that password is only valid for whatever time period I set. I can have it change weekly if I wanted to. The computer will always update, reach out. That does kind of play a little weird when it comes to computers that are off the domain, but if I'm correct, specifically for computers that have been out of the network but still haven't lost trust with the domain, if, say, the expiration period is 1 week and that computer doesn't check in to get its new password, it will not change that password. It'll actually still maintain until that computer can reach out and grab it. But the moment that computer reestablishes connection with the network, it will immediately start, pulling its permissions. Like I said, once it rejoins that network, it'll start grabbing all its permissions. Even if nothing's actually changed, it'll still query the domain controller and say, hey, what's my new rule set? What am I still allowed to do with these users? You're good, sis. So let's take a look. So installing apps. So what we're going to do first is go ahead and pop over to here. Pull up our DC. We're going to use the default browser. And we're going to go down here to Maps. Yes. So we're going to go ahead and click download. Yes. And we have the Lapse 64-bit MSI file. So we're going to go ahead and download that. So every system that we're going to be working on, at least for my instance, it may change for you guys, is going to be a 64-bit instance. So we're going to go ahead and crop that file real quick. Let's see, is it downloading? Still waiting. I don't remember where the download, if it pops up on the side for this browser or not. It may be stupid about it. We may just go ahead and install a different browser on here just to help us get through it, because I do know that they've sunset Explorer, so we're just gonna pop Firefox on here real quick. Yes, fine. Download Firefox. There we go. So the reason we're doing Firefox is just because it's a lightweight browser. It doesn't take too much up. Chrome also has all the nice features, but that comes with more of RAM consumption. But with us running this on VMs just for the sake of showing the environment, it's probably better to go with limiting stuff. So we're just gonna wait for that to download. Probably take here just a second. Your download wasn't open, I lost. Okay. Continue process. Hey, what's up, UDP? How you doing? You're really gonna be like this, aren't you? You're really gonna fight me on a Firefox. Let's try. Is Edge installed? Default? No, it is not. That's interesting. Your download was interrupted but not lost. Alright, fine. Let's be like that. Trying to figure out, other than starting a shared folder, how to actually. Let's do that real quick. Let's just pop over to the machine, which is our Windows 10 that's right here. We're going to full screen it so we can work in this environment for just a moment. Browser console. We don't open browser console. No, it's fine. I think actually have Firefox already ready to go here. Downloads Chrome. Screw it, we're going to share Chrome. Properties. Securities. I mean, it's actually installed. New folder. Share. Drop Chrome in here, and then properties. Sharing. Advanced sharing. Share this folder. Share name. Share. Comments. Apply. Alright, so now if we come over into here, so let's grab our AD. Windows 10 slash share. There we go. Now we can install browser. Now I think I've seen UDP in the chat before, or in the Discord. I think he's been around here. But little shortcut. That's also a nice little thing if you guys are ever trying to transfer files between. We will eventually create an actual shared folder between that everybody can access. That's what I thought UDP's in the Discord. Yeah. But we'll later actually create a shared folder and start throwing data between that, start handling permissions just to kind of show how you can manage shared content like that with AD's permissions. But for now, we're going to minimize this again, and there's Chrome. Alright, back to the original task at hand. Windows, Maps, Local Administrator Solution. I don't want to try it. That's okay with me. Once again, we've got Laps. before. So we're going to download that. You can see it downloaded here. So this installation is going to be very specific, so we need to pay attention to this real quick. So once you start the installation, go to Next, accept the licenses, and here's where we need to pay attention. So this installation that we're doing right now is on the DC. By default, when you run the installation, it only grabs the extension. We need to make sure that we do will be installed on local hard drive. Install. There we go. So make sure that we install entire features will be installed on hard drive. So what this is the management tools. So what Laps is going to do is actually change some AD permissions and some AD rules, specifically revolving around password schemas, and it also needs to have the ability to read those passwords and change those passwords. So what this allows us to do is actually assign these features into AD for us to use them. Go ahead and run it that way. We've got that installed. Let's pop back over to God. Yep, just like I said here. So now we're going to pop on to my side screen this so I can still read it and I'll pull back in as we work on it. Jump into PowerShell. Import. Let me autocomplete. No, it's not. Import. I did. That's why you be patient, guys. Import module. ADM. wd.PowerShell. So, cool thing about this, if you see no errors, you did it right. It's as simple as that. Just make sure I don't have any comments there. Alright, we're good. That's it. See no errors, that means you're good. So now we're going to update AD schema. There we go. And there we go. All were successful. So let's take a look at this. They've added schema attributes. They've added another set of schema attributes. Specifically, you can see what it actually added in here, and I'll kind of break down some of this in a second. And then modified schema classes. So look right here. They're calling specifically what they're editing here. You can see that they're changing the configurations and the schema of this, and you can see right here where it starts to say DC equals A. That's our all safe domain. So what it's specifically saying is we're targeting this particular process, we're targeting these attributes of that process, and then we're targeting it in this location. You can see the same thing here, same configuration. Actually, right here's a perfect example. It's a lot less that they're editing, so you can see where it says all safe, and because it's a .local domain, it's also specifying that it is a local. And it is also modifying right here. I don't know as much about what's going on in this one. It looks like specifically it's targeting the computer, the name schema. So it's probably targeting all the computers that belong to the domain, specifically in all safe. So check the necessary admin permissions, which is make sure I don't have any questions on this before we continue. If you guys have any questions while we're going through this, by all means, if you're curious as to what we're actually doing, let me know. Make some rights. Make sure. Alright. Workstation, I spelled that wrong. Workstations. Sorry about that. Still nothing. Let me check. Remove all extended permissions. Oh no, we don't have to do that. Okay, good. So it looks like by default, because we didn't have anything in that group, that's why it's bonus. So we're good here. Anybody in the chat, what is the command to clear PowerShell? I do not remember. I thought it was CLR. Oh wait, on that. Let's start moving forward, start getting the next steps up. While I'm waiting, let's actually take a quick break. I do want to show you guys something actually while we're waiting real quick while I sit here and kind of prep everything. Want to introduce you guys to bluecapesecurity.com. So for any of you who have been hanging out in the Discord, we've been getting a lot of questions, you know, where should I go to learn this? Where should I go to that? I've been suggesting TCM courses lately, and one of the courses that just recently came out was specifically Windows Forensics. Um, can you guys still hear me okay? We'll wait and see if anybody responds. But one of the courses that specifically just came out here recently was the Windows Forensics course. Through joining on that Discord and talking with the creator of the course. Okay, we can start. What we're doing is Windows AD stuff. Specifically, today we're playing with Laps. I just want to check on something, but while we're just going to stop for just a second, I want to introduce you guys to this. I think it's a great resource for you guys to have. So, talked to the creator of the course, and this is his website that he runs. Talking with him, he's got a wealth of knowledge. Some of the stuff that's on here is also really nice. Starts going to, specifically the Windows Forensic stuff, goes into different courses. So if you want to follow along with the full course over on TCM, highly recommend it. It's videos, goes through, even associated stuff, labs, walks you through the whole thing. But for those of you who aren't in the place to be able to purchase that course right now, or just want some touch-ups and stuff like that, this is a good place to go. Hey, what's up, movie world? So, come over here, we can look at the different stuff he's got going. So, building your forensics workstation. Pop in, shows you some of the steps for it, even gives you the list of tools to install. What is it? Install, I guess. Install Windows VMs, PowerShell administrators, the setup Windows subsystems, configuring Windows environments, download the install the forensics tools. So, start getting into the forensics tools, what are the forensics tools, and he lists off everything that he covers in his courses, both of all the stuff, and yeah. So if anybody who's starting to get into the Windows forensics stuff, thank you, I appreciate it. So everybody who's starting to get into the Windows forensics stuff, specifically following along with the AD course that we're doing right now, it's something I highly recommend kind of dipping into. It's a real nice little tool to have. But let's get back to this. So the reason we got these errors just a second ago is because we were checking to figure out who had the extended permissions over workstation. So we have it right now. Pop open our users' computers again. Perfect. So computers. If we look inside of our computers tab, you can see we have this too. Oh yeah, I added a computer in there as a test one. This one's actually no longer part of the domain. We'll tweak that here in a second once I verify, just to make sure we're not deleting the wrong computer. But let's go ahead and pop that to PowerShell again. Go to set EWD computer permissions org. OU make sure I got this right. Clients. Hey, thank you, Movie World. Crossman does a lot of that main content that's here on the channel, but some of you guys know if you watched his AMA that just came out, his hot tub stream and everything. He's actually joined the Navy. He's actually currently in some training right now, so he'll be in and out. You probably won't see as much content from him for the next probably I'd say 2 or 3 months, but afterwards we should start getting him back a little more, start seeing some more of his progress, and during that time he's actually working on a bunch of cool projects that he's hoping to unveil later on. So even though we don't see him right now, he is still putting work on some of these bigger projects that he's kind of been dreaming up and everything. So the hope is once he gets back, he can probably show off all this stuff that's been going on. It's a bunch of really cool stuff. So, let's see, DC equals all safe. Did I do all caps or is it just lowercase? We'll find out here in a second. All safe. DC equals local. Find out if it's correct. It was not. I think it was because of all safe. I'm pretty sure I have all safe spelled as all caps in the actual domain. So let's all safe. What did I have the domain controllers or the domain names? Like I said, today's experimental episode. We may not even get through the full Flaps installation. We're still poking around at this, and to be honest, this is my first time doing installation like this. Let's go. I've used computers app. Let's check the domain. It is just all safe. Or unit. Because it isn't dot. Yeah, it's not local. All safe. DC, all safe, commas. Oh, clients. Set admin. Ask for computer cell permission or unit. So what we're trying to do is set specifically the group that's responsible for this right here. So you can see we've said, okay, here's what we're trying to set. Here's what we're going to set it as. And we pulled from our OU clients from the domain controller, DC, all safe, .local. So down, running it again is going to fix the issue. Let's try. Yep, see. Let's see, what is it? The object does not exist. Let's try something. Let's run this with Matze, who is a domain admin. PowerShell. that open. So we're going to run the same situation just as Matze off of the main controller and see if that has any effect on it. ADM. It's trying to auto detect what it wants it to be. So it's not going to pick up any. I spelled that. We're going to not acknowledge that I tried to spell permissions like that. Is it going to find it? I recognize it as a name. Right. Let me check something real quick, make sure I'm not missing something. This here's what's interesting. I bet if we come into the go to oh, actually, I think I know what it is. Let me check here. This is what it is. So, the guy that I'm having, they have their computers all listed inside of the clients folder. I don't have a clients folder, so I'm basically telling it to try to find something that does not exist. So that was bad on my part. Let's see if this fixes it. There's one called computers. Computers. Okay. I'm sure. Is it S or just one? Okay. That was a mess. Still nothing. Did I misspell that? I think I definitely did. It still says that it's not able to locate this. Maybe that's the issue. Let me Google that and see if I can find it. So what we're checking for, and even if this was found, I made the mistake of still following their format of clients versus computers, which is where I have mine grouped. Yeah, I saw that. Wait, another mistake or make sure. You guys ever look at a word that you spell commonly and you know how it's spelled, but when you start looking at it, it doesn't look like it's spelled correctly? Administrator is one of those words, and for some reason right now computers acting like one of those words. But I also just don't English well, so. ADM password. Computer self. Computer self permissions. object does not exist. Void object. Let's see. Answer agent. The object does not exist. Maybe it's working. What user we signed in as Windows? It's the administrator account. Let's try something with. Let's go here and try sign out. Actions, guest OS, same keys. See, one of the things that's kind of weird about this whole process for me is that I'm used to being able to do this stuff by myself. Like, I just go sit down, do some studying, take care of the issue. But we bump into mistakes like this all the time when you're fixing things, especially whenever you don't fully understand it. Take time to really grasp it, and especially during your first installation, you're really not going to understand it. Now I've got people watching me as I'm bumping through these mistakes, and it feels weird, It almost makes the mistakes feel heavier than they really are. Like, have I done anything wrong? Really, no. I'm just trying to figure out the process of this, but it still feels like something is wrong. Set. ADM. Computer. Computer self permissions. There's permission or permissions. Okay. Cat. Org. Unit. We're going to give it the OU computers. We're going to comma DC equals all safe, comma DC equals local, and then close it. Still the same problem. Let's try. So same thing. Computers. Enter users computers. And yeah, that's about it, right. Only thing I can think that'd be different specifically with all safe, but we've tried it a capital A already. Okay, we've been going for about an hour. I've got some stuff I need to dig through. That's what I thought. It was all safe. Oh, maybe because I changed it though. No, you might be right actually. Hold on, let's try that. Because safe. Nope, still not. Let me check something else before I give up on this. Before we take a break for the day and figure out what's going on. That's interesting. Hold on, let me figure something out.
Session, and I'm going to run a get AD organizational unit and filter by the name of servers, and then
No,
output
because you still
that
have to
into
break.
our
I
server org unit
what
to
you said.
show us the distinguished name for our servers. Schema, and we can do that by
So we've
typing
done
in
this. This
update
is the second one we
ADN
did.
PWD AD schema, and once we have that clicked.
Let's try that real quick just to see. Maybe it. Same thing. Let's try variations. I need you to go away. Same situation. So let's check here and just see what's.
Or once we do that, it should show us with a success.
So as you guys remember, we did actually run this command. This is what I was talking about. We broke down kind of what it was doing. And even if you look here, DCAD equals DC. So we still broke down. Like, so we're all safe.local. They're AD dot the sysadmin for whatever reason.
Active Directory
So
schema
weird.
updated. I'm going to go back into our OS with a success status. So that looks good. So now that I got the Active Directory schema updated, I'm going to go back into our Active Directory users and computers. And I'm just going to want to create two groups for administering the local passwords for servers and for workstations. So I'm going to create a group called labs-server.
This guy's doing something completely different than what we were trying to follow. Mind you, none of these are Microsoft documentation. These are all kind of people who have done it before, and mostly because a lot of times when I'm doing these installations, during the first time I'll go and watch somebody do it, but later on I'll start reading the documentation, figuring out, okay, I did it, but how did I do it? Like, what was actually happening? So, you see him go in, so he's creating a group. Where did he create these groups under? Under his users.
And computers. And I'm just going to want to create two groups.
Does he create it? He has a separate group via folder. Do we want to build? Let's do it. Let's see. We're going to new group. Let's just call it. Let's follow his format. Let's see where he's putting it. I'll remember what I do.
Passwords for servers and for workstations.
Yeah, let's just call it groups, and then we'll create it that way. So groups. We want these to be. Yes. Where we put that?
group called Labs-Server Administrators, and these are going to be the server administrators for the servers OU. And I'm going to create another group called Labs Computer Administrators. And as you guessed it, these are going to be the administrators that are allowed to see the passwords for our workstations OU. So I got two OUs here, my servers OU and my computers OU that I'm going to be adding.
Mind you, wherever we put these groups aren't as important because we can assign things from wherever, so it may not follow his exact format from what we're looking at, but
a group policy and linking it to those OUs for the corresponding policy. So I'm going to go back into PowerShell, our PowerShell session, and I'm going to run a get AD organizational unit and filter by the name of servers, and then output that into our server OU. This should give us the distinguished name for our servers OU, and I'm going to do the same for the computer OU. So I'm going to do another get AD organizational unit, filter name like computers, and that should.
Oh, I see what he's done. Let's do it that way. I've never done it the PowerShell way. Should be cool. I usually create all my policies through the actual policy manager, but you can do it through PowerShell. So let's server OU. Sorry if I'm being quiet, I'm actually just trying to figure out. Distinguished. I misspelled something. Good. I'm glad I misspelled something in it. Oh, that worked. Okay. So then let's edit this command a bit. For computer, we should have some somewhere. Good.
Give me the computers OU that we're looking for. So if I go ahead and type in servers.
So I do server OU.
OU, that should give us the.
Oh. Alright, yeah, so should have put out the actual OU and everything. You should have listed out the main and all that fun stuff. So let's try something. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. We've been going through some at this point, so what I'm gonna do is come back. I don't know. For those who are still left right now, we kind of started this off with not really understanding what we were gonna do here, just kind of wanting to poke around at it. Did you guys like this structure? Do you guys want to see more kind of step-by-step instructions as we go through? That way, when we go through, we're kind of not bumping into errors like this. What do you guys want to see on this? I'm fine continuing to kind of struggle with this and learn it as we go and kind of bump into stuff, but it's going to be a little harder to slow the progress as we go through. Whatever you guys prefer, we can definitely work on that. Just, yeah. As you see, we've got a nice collection of red, but what I'll do is revisit this, study a little more on it, probably capture a snapshot of where we're at right now, and finish the process of doing it. That way I have a better understanding of what's going on. And that might be part of what I do from now on as well. It's just still prep with ready to go instructions, but we'll still research it, kind of, follow the instructions that we find online still, but just kind of it backed up with some of that other knowledge as well. Be nice. So I don't know. We'll see where this goes. But for now, I appreciate everybody jumping on. It's been nice hanging out with you guys for a bit, and I hope to see you guys sometime soon. But in the immortal words, probably stay happy. Wait, stay happy, stay hacking, something like that. I don't know. Bye, guys.